right, hello OAS family. We got a really special video for you today. Today we are going to do a video to show you how a more experienced artist basically copies a painting. So if you have been with us a while, you will note that in our book catalog we have a lot of instructional books. And in particular, we have the catalog is sort of features most prominently the instructional books of my father, Ning Yeh, and he has a very unique style when it comes to instructional books, is that his instruction has the most detail, stroke by stroke, usually, of any books that are out there. So after we get sort of used to this kind of style of instruction, we can feel a little lost when we don't have as detailed of an instruction. You know, once somebody basically takes a painting and shows you 1, 2, 3, 4, how to do every single stroke in the painting from beginning to end, then when you don't have that, you sort of think, well, how do I fill in the blanks? How do I do strokes that they're not telling me how to do? So we thought we'd do a video to show you how a more experienced painter does that, and hopefully you can kind of see the process. And if you can figure out how to do this on your own, it unlocks a huge world of potential for your painting, because there's so many beautiful paintings. There's so many books of collected works of master artists, but you know, it was very difficult to get these artists to sit down and do instructional books, because they just weren't that interested in it. They would much rather be painting than they would be doing more elementary compositions targeted at more beginning painters, and then having to do the sort of tedious work of explaining every single stroke to how to do a painting. That is much less fun, I think, for a master painter than to just, paint all day and paint and follow their creativity and do what they're loving to do, is do paintings the type of paintings that inspire them. So the idea is, if you can make up your own instruction, if you can see a painting and learn how to copy it, then you have a wonderful tool at your disposal for producing, initially just starting to copy some of the more famous artists, some of the more skilled master artists out there. And eventually through that process, you're going to develop your own style. And, one day you'll be the one that people are trying to copy. So hopefully that's an exciting subject for you. We're really excited about it, and the demonstration is coming up next. So it's going to be in 2 pieces. We're going to show the original painting first, and we're going to have like a little strategy session where we just talk about the original painting, and we talk about the brushes that we're going to use, and maybe the paper that we're going to target, and then we're going to actually show the demonstration. All right? So it's coming up right now. Oh, before you go on, make sure you like and subscribe this video for more content like this, and we appreciate you watching. Here comes the demonstration. So this is the original painting that is the inspiration for the video lesson. It's a painting by Zhao Shaoan. So this is the original painting, and this painting can be found in his book, which we've done a video book review on, which there's a link in the description. But this book is Album Paintings by Zhao Shaoan. And it's a really, really, if you like this style of painting, this is an amazing book, because it has so many examples of what I think is his most iconic style of painting. So, every single one of these pages is sort of adorned with a different painting, and it's all in this these are all these sort of smaller paintings with this very, very spontaneous, very sparse style of his. And so we wanted to do this lesson to basically show how a more experienced artist would take a look at a painting and kind of make their own lesson, or figure out how to recreate the painting without the benefit of a lesson. So if you can see here, as we look and examine this painting, we can see that there is this main line, and that line has basically two ink strokes with some space in the middle. So when we see a stroke like that, we automatically think mountain horse brush, because the mountain horse brush is really dry and it has enough energy and bounce to do these line strokes. And you can see later in this video that she is going to split the mountain horse brush, and she's going to load the ink on the either side of the brush, so she gets this sort of stroke where you have, it's kind of like outline. But if you were to paint each of these lines individually, it would be really difficult, but you can use a trick with the brush to get this stroke in one stroke rather than two. Then when we look at the body of the brush, we can see these shapes. The shapes have us thinking flow brush, you know, so when you see the bodies and the feathers, you're thinking, oh, yeah, there are these shape strokes. So that says immediately to us flow brush. And then you can see that there's these details for the legs and the beak and the eye. And that has us thinking like a detail brush, like could be like pine needle, could be happy dot, could be whisker brush, any of these new brushes that we've been featuring that are good for doing these finer line strokes. So that is basically how we sort of took a look at this painting and said, okay, based on what we know about the brushes, how are we going to recreate this painting without the benefit of like a sequential stroke breakdown or like a lesson. So if you can learn how to do that, then these album of collected works become incredible resources, because, you know, once you learn how to make your own lesson from a finished painting, you know, basically you're learning how to copy a painting. Then these album of collected work contain so many paintings, so it's like, you know, you can never really run out of material, because there's one of these books has 100 or so paintings in it. So definitely gives you a lot of material to work with if you can connect the dots and figure out how to recreate the painting without the benefit of somebody breaking it down for you or a lesson. So now that we've talked about the brushes that we think we're going to use when we do this painting, we're going to talk a little bit about the paper. So we can see here that the stroke work, which is very typical of these types of paintings by Zhao Cao An, it has a really loose feel. And to get that loose feel, we want to be able to have a little bit more moisture on the brush. But we don't want bleeding. So you can see on this painting that he doesn't really utilize a lot of bleeding or running for any effects in the painting. Maybe a little bit on these flower strokes, but in general, it's mostly all the full impact of the color of the strokes. And so because of that, we're going to want to choose a semi-sized paper. So you can see here that my mother has done the painting on 3 different types of paper. And one is a raw paper called cotton paper. But cotton, of all the raw papers, is the most moisture forgiving. So if you don't know about cotton paper, and if you're searching for a less expensive paper that will help you control moisture without using sizing, then the cotton paper is good for that. It is a raw paper. It is a paper that is a little bit cheaper than the other papers that actually have sizing applied that are considered semi-sized, but it does offer that moisture control. She also does the paper on 2 different semi-sized paper, does the painting on 2 different semi-sized papers. One is the semi-sized Schwen paper, which is a new paper that we introduced just a few months ago, and also the vintage tea-colored mulberry paper, which is also a semi-sized paper. So you will see the live demonstration is going to be on the cotton paper, but we're also going to show 2 finished paintings, or 2 finished versions of the painting, one on the semi-sized Schwen and one on the tea-colored mulberry. So that's coming right up.
I'm going to do this subject on cotton paper, and a good quality ink. Today I'm using our green bottle, green lid fine line ink, and 12 color companion set. I'm using 3 different kind of brush. I'm using the pine needle brush, which we sold out, but we just brought in some more. And I'm using the mountain horse, either medium or large. And then I'm using flow brush. To make my subject runs smoothly without having to wash my brush, so I actually prepared 3 flow brush for different colors, but at home you can take your time to clean your brush, so 1 flow is fine. So there's 3 different kind of pine needle brush, the mountain horse brush, and the flow brush.
What size is the mountain horse brush that you're using?
The mountain horse brush, that depends on the size of painting you do. I would choose either mountain horse medium or mountain horse large. So I start with the beak of the brush. So I use the pine needle brush because this brush has body, and also it doesn't hold a lot of ink. It's perfect for the beak without having an issue of running. Then I'm getting to the eye. So I'm using like half a circle looking up. You can see that I'm using the paper is not sensitive to the moisture. So later on, I'll talk about it. I used vintage antique color mulberry paper. I used semi-sized shrimp paper, and I used the cotton paper. All of them works. So I'm using the same flow brush, and I'm using ink. I'm using indigo, and I use a little bit iridescent green as an option, give a shininess on the lighter color of the feather. And then now I'm switching to the pine needle brush for the wing. And then I'm using flow brush for the dark part of the feather, the body. And then now I'm using the pine needle brush again to do the shape, to finish the shape. And then And I used the pine needle brush. This time I cleaned it very well. And then with a little ink, with a little vermilion. I use the paper towel, make sure that it's not too wet. So I finished my bird. Then the next thing is I'm going to do the branch. So it's this one is a medium size, but you can also use a large size. And I split the hair into 2 sections. And make sure that your brush is pretty dry. And then I use a little ink and a little blue so the branch is not too dark. So I started with around the beak area, and then I connected with the bird. And so I'm using another flow brush, and to use a little bit vermilion with red, just to add more color. Then I extended the branch. Then I'm done. So now I'm going to sign my name with small happiness brush here. That's it. This one, I'm doing it, I did it on a semi-sized shrimp paper. It's very easy to do, easy to control the moisture and give good color and doesn't run.
Okay, and then you have a third one.
Yes, I have a third one, which is the vintage mulberry paper that has the antique color. And this one, you can see that I have some trouble with the moisture control. The body and everything was working great, the peak too. And then somehow my brush on the bird leg is too wet, so it becomes blobs. So that's where my mistake is. I want to show you the mistake so you know that when we can control it, that when you load the brush, and then you have a piece of paper towel, and what you do is you actually dab it into it. So make sure the moisture not too wet, and then you can do it. But I didn't do it, so this is what happened. It's like becomes the blob.